Welcome back to the Richard Sherman podcast presented by our friends and partners over at Breitling. Mitchell, they got you right with your Honolulu Blue. It's the best year the Lions have had, but enough about them. We'll talk about them plenty. Let's talk about the game that happened tonight between the Houston Texans and the flailing Dallas Cowboys. I mean, it was pretty poetic that as they tried to open the roof, something fell. Kind of was a microcosm for what that day was going to be like for this team.
And what the season has become. The roof is certainly falling in on the Dallas Cowboys season. Richard, we didn't expect anything too crazy from the Cowboys today. With Dak Prescott officially going on IR, his season's over. It's Cooper Rush's time to shine, and it was a dull night for Cooper Rush in this Dallas Cowboys offense. The defense tried to keep him in there, but that defensive pick, I don't know, I guess fumble, recovery, whatever the heck it was, return for a touchdown at the beginning of the half was a backbreaker for them. Before we talk about the Cowboys and their woes, though, let's talk about the Houston Texans, because they bounce back and get a much-needed road win after taking one on the chin from my boys at home last Sunday night. What do you think of this Texans team? How impressed were you by them?
Well, I was just happy to see Nico Collins back. I mean, he was having an all-pro type season before the injury, and you hate to see a guy who's having a special season have it derailed by injuries. Obviously, he's back, and I wish they would let that first touchdown stand, because that was a heck of a way to welcome him back, taking a bubble screen, 60, 70 yards for a touchdown. Unfortunately, it gets called back for a holding or something like that. But it was really cool to just see CJ Stroud with his weapons again. He looks like an entirely different quarterback, as most quarterbacks look when they have their complement of receivers and they have their number one receiver out there, even though he doesn't have his number two in Stephon Diggs, who's out for the season with his ACL injury. But with him and Tank Dell, I think it's still, it's reminding me of last year, CJ Stroud's rookie year, when he had just Tank Dell and Nico Collins and Noah Brown. And I think they're going to find a way to recapture that potency that they had near the end of last year, because a big part of that is Joe Mixon and what he's been able to do. He's been a stabilizer for this offense each and every week. He has 10 touchdowns in 8 games, had 3 rushing touchdowns in this game alone. And it just seems like whenever things are going bad, whenever the ship is getting rocky, he gets to the front and he captains that thing and he stabilizes it. He keeps it steady for this offense and CJ Stroud. And that's what you need for a young quarterback to be able to lean on, to be able to have a foundation when hey, maybe my fastball isn't going, maybe I'm a little off with my passes, maybe I'm not feeling as good. I can turn around and hand it to Joe Mixon, and he's going to make something out of nothing most times. And I think when their defense is playing like it is, Danielle Hunter had a really good game, had 2 sacks. We talked about the Derek Barnett forced fumble, recovery, touchdown. Derek Stingley had a really good day, had the interception on CeeDee Lamb, but had a number of breakups, had what I thought could be another interception, and then CeeDee Lamb had the offensive pass interference call. But he's an elite player. And when they get Will Anderson back fully healthy, once they're fully healthy, they're going to be a problem for somebody. It's just about the matchups that they run into, because they're not a great matchup for everybody, and others, they're a nightmare matchup. So I'm really happy that the Texans were able to right the ship. I watched them the Thursday night game they had against the Jets, who are obviously on the downward spiral, and they lost that game unexpectedly. That was a game that left you scratching your head, because you thought they had that game. You thought they'd get rolling, and that would have been another game. I knew they'd struggle with Detroit. Detroit is just one of those contenders, powerhouse teams right now that they're well built, they're tough, they're built in the trenches, they're built the right way. So you're always going to have tough times with them. They have a great offensive coordinator, a head coach who wants to keep the foot on the gas each and every game, regardless of the scoreboard. And I love it. They got some players who have great chemistry, great rapport, who trust one another, who believe in one another, play for one another. And that's always positive. So, but the Texans, I wish they would have had that game against the Jets, because if they would have had that game, you're looking at a team that's 8-3, really challenging for that top spot in the AFC, because they're, the Baltimore Ravens have been up and down. They just lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't have an offensive touchdown. And you thought, hey, man, this is Baltimore's division to lose. But right now it looks like Mike Tomlin has the Pittsburgh Steelers rolling even when they don't. But a team that's not rolling It's the Dallas Cowboys.
They've just been a comedy of errors over the last several weeks. Obviously, injuries have played a role on putting this team in a downward spiral early in the season. But Richard, I mean, they're now 3-7. Like, how bad can this really get in Dallas now? Because I'm not seeing many glimmers of hope in Dallas.
The only thing you could hope for is the draft. And people called me crazy when I had that conversation a couple of weeks ago when I was like, hey, they could be picking Shador or, you know what I mean, and have Dion as a head coach. And then all of a sudden, every talking head is like, what if the Cowboys pick Dion as a head coach? But when I say it, everybody called me crazy. But I said it weeks before anybody else said it. But whatever, that's the story for a different day. But I think they're going to be picking early in this draft. And if they keep losing, I don't see how they win these games with Cooper Rush. I mean, he only threw one interception this game, but he could have threw a lot more. He got some garbage time yards that made, his stats look pretty respectable. But overall, they're just not playing well. I mean, I guess it's a celebration that they didn't give up 40 at home. Most games at home this season, they've given up 40-plus points. And, I mean, we're not even going to talk about what your Lions did to them because, again, they're still charges filed in Dallas right now for what the Lions did to them. So their defense isn't getting pressure, and Micah Parsons was hurt. DeMarcus Lawrence is out and has been hurt, and so the pass rush has suffered, but Micah Parsons is back. He's not getting a lot of sack. They had one sack on the day. They just look uninspired. CeeDee Lamb had 8 catches for 93, but looked very dejected throughout this game especially when Cooper Rush misses him behind, or he drops a pass that was a bit behind him, or he has a miscomm with Cooper Rush, which leads to an interception from Derek Stingley. And I don't see a lot of hope in sight. I think this answers a lot of questions for Dallas fans who are trying to get rid of Dak Prescott and play Cooper Rush, and then we'll figure it out and just draft and do this. Well, Cooper Rush isn't the answer, and you get to see him for the rest of the season because they put Dak on IR. So every Cooper Rush fan, you're going to get your an abundance of it. It's going to be plentiful. You're going to get plenty of tape to see Cooper Rush. And yes, he's going to have to deal with this offensive line who hasn't been great. You lost your left tackle for a little while. Even when he was in there, he didn't look really great. And so I don't know where you go from here in terms of team building, because even when you have your defense getting turnovers, Malik Hooker got an interception in a game off an overthrow when CJ Stroud was trying to go to Nico Collins on a post route, but nothing comes from it because the offense is just they just don't have answers. And it doesn't seem like they did enough in the offseason. And I think everybody understood that when they didn't go after Derrick Henry, which everybody thought, hey, they're going to throw the bank at Derrick Henry because they need a running back really bad. And I don't even think Derrick Henry could solve your problems, but it would have dang sure helped. It would have dang sure helped people get off your back during the preseason about making a move, because that would have been a huge splash. Derrick Henry in Dallas, I mean, who could hate it? But instead, you win with the guys you have. That wasn't enough. I don't know if they win another game, and people have been saying this all season. I think the Commanders are a better team. They go to Washington. I think Washington has their way and wins that game. They're on an upward trajectory, and I'm sure that will just kill Jerry Jones to lose to a coach that he lost to the system. He lost Dan Quinn, a coach that you could have just promoted. You could have just promoted Dan Quinn and had him run your team, but you wanted another year McCarthy to see how it goes. It's getting worse with time. What are you going to do with Micah Parsons? I don't know what they're going to do, Mitch, because he should be getting paid right now, and the price is only going up unless you're not going to pay him. And I keep saying that because that's what it seems like. I don't hear no contract discussions. I don't hear no negotiations. Like, he's got 2 All-Pros to his name already. First 2 years, he was up for Defensive Player of the Year. He's not this year. He's having an off year this year, but for the most part, he's been an elite pass rusher majority of his career, and a lot of teams would take him. But are you planning on rebuilding with the draft picks that you'd get for trading him? Are you building around him? Like, what is the plan? Because you paid CeeDee Lamb, you paid Dak Prescott. You're not going to pay the pass rusher?
Well, you said it, Richard. Jerry Jones failed this offseason, and he's failed the last couple off seasons by not preparing for the future. And I hate to keep taking it back to my Detroit Lions, but Brad Holmes pulled off a masterclass over these last 2 years on how to be a professional GM. When you extend your guys and keep them in house for year after year after year, I mean, he paid Penei Sewell 2 years early before he had to. He just re-upped Aleem McNeil. He got Jared Goff under contract. He went and signed his number one wide receiver and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now he's going to have to look at the safeties and Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. But at least, he's got an idea of how much his cap space is going to be affected in the future and make sure he's building with the right guys. The right guys are here in Dallas. Why those guys have not been paid 2 years ago is beyond me. And he's starting to have to pay the piper for his mistakes. This national media and their spotlight is going to start to take aim and start to take focus. And I don't know if it's going to be centered so much on Jerry Jones. My guess is it's going to take aim directly at Mike McCarthy. And the question in Dallas is going to be, how long can Mike McCarthy stand this losing streak and what appears to have nothing going right in Dallas? Do you think he makes it out of the next couple of weeks? Do you think he makes it past Washington next week?
Yes, I think he makes it past because Jerry Jones has a human shield right now for his criticism. Right now McCarthy's going to be taking all the criticism. McCarthy's going to be taking all the negativity, the comments. Jerry Jones will get to semi-skate by until the offseason when it's time to hire a new coach. And by then he'll have hired a really good coach. Maybe made a huge splash hire to really, quiet the fans and up enthusiasm and then people all forget all about this season. So I think he's going to let McCarthy ride this season out just so he doesn't have to take the criticism. Because if you fire McCarthy, they'll talk about that for a week, but they talk about the Dallas Cowboys so much that after they're done talking about that, who else is there to talk about? Jerry Jones. We're going to just keep talking about Jerry Jones on his radio show. They're going to be like, Jerry Jones, what are you doing? So in order to really shield himself from that, he got to keep McCarthy. You got to keep him, and you got to let him keep coaching, good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, if they don't win another game, you could be like, oh, it's McCarthy's fault. But if you fire McCarthy and you keep losing, then they're going to be sitting there like, Jerry, what kind of team did you put together? All the mistakes are going to be more glaring, and they're going to start to point the finger at him, the GM Jerry, and what he's been able to do and what he hasn't done. So I think he keeps McCarthy just for that reason.
Well, I'm very curious to see what happens. This is going to be a huge opportunity for Dallas to somewhat turn their season around next week. The NFL season is rolling along, and contenders are starting to separate from the pack. The one thing that hasn't changed all season, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is the number one place to bet touchdowns. Fade to the corner of the end zone, running back breaks through the line and gallops 60 yards for a score. We don't care how they get them. We just want to bet on touchdowns, and DraftKings is the best place to do it. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. Bet just $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Richard. That's code Richard for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. We were looking at another team that was looking to turn their season around in the Cincinnati Bengals. They go on the road at 4-6, desperately needing a win to get back on their feet in the playoff picture, and they lose in dramatic fashion to the LA Chargers. The Cincinnati Bengals showed a lot of resiliency in this game because it looked like they were down and out. I mean, frankly, you said it off air, but Joe Mixon is having such a killer season. You can tell the Cincinnati Bengals desperately miss Joe Mixon right now. But the Chargers, overcome the momentum shift with the Bengals get back into the game, and kudos to them. Their defense stood tall late. Richard, how impressed are you with Jim Harbaugh and these LA Chargers right now, finding themselves 7-3, 10 weeks into the season?
I mean, it really impressed. I'm really impressed because we all knew how talented this team was. The LA Chargers, they've been talented for years, but they always underwhelm. They always underperform, especially defensively. Even Justin Herbert, people are saying he's top 5 quarterback in the National Football League, but you don't always get to see that because of his weapons and drops and injuries, et cetera, et cetera. But team just doesn't live up to the hype. And insert Jim into the equation, and now they have what appears to be the number one defense in the league. That talented defense, pass rusher galore. Even when Khalil Mack is out, Joey Bosa wreaks havoc, and Tua Pelotu has a really good game, sack and a half, 4 quarterback hits, having a really solid season. 8 sacks, 22 total pressures over the last 4 games. He had a sack and a half in this game. Quentin Johnson has really, revived his career. They were screaming that he was a bust. He had 2 catches for 48 yards and a touchdown in this game. Will Disley got busy in this game, 4 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. But Ladd McConkey, the guy everybody was questioning, why did they draft that guy so early? 6 catches for 123. He's separating. He's catching balls. He's all reliable. Mitchell, I'm not saying that anything that anybody doesn't know, but, a certain skin tone, they expect things to be reliable, possession guy, great hands, route running is where he's supposed to be, heady player, smart, high IQ, things of that nature. And he's been all that. And Justin Herbert had a really good, solid game. You can't say great. He was under 50% completion percentage, but 297 yards, 2 touchdowns. The underrated part of his game is he's starting to use his legs. And he had 5 rushes for 65 yards. He did lose a fumble in the game, but it happened to not matter. The Bengals started to come back in this game and looked really efficient. They freaking roared back, 3 touchdowns unanswered, and they tied the game up. And I thought, it's about to happen for them. Like, this is every year the Cincinnati Bengals turn it around and they get rolling, and then you can't stop them. But the Chargers answered at the end when they had to have it, made the plays that they have to have. But you look at Joe Burrow's season, and you're like, this has to be the greatest season for a 4-7 quarterback in the history of the National Football League. If they were 7-4, if they were 8-3, he'd be the runaway MVP candidate, even with Lamar Jackson. But you can't even mention him in the conversation because they're 4-7. But leads the league in passing yards with 3,028, 27 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions, multiple 5-touchdown games that he lost. Like, if I throw 5 touchdowns and no interceptions and we lose, I'm going to have a hard time showing up to work the next day. And if I do, I'm going to be swinging on a lot of people, every single person. Somebody's getting swung on because I'm doing my part and I'm showing up and I'm pushing the envelope, and y'all are letting me down. And honestly, it's this defense. It's this defense. The defense is letting them down. You give up 34 points to the Chargers. This is a good offense, but you can't have it. And every single week they give up more points than they get. And Joe Burrow is carrying his team on his back time after time. You get really good. You get T. Higgins back. T. Higgins comes in, 9 catches, 148 and a tug. Jamar Chase has 2 touchdowns, 7 catches, 75 yards. Evan McPherson. These kickers. Justin Tucker, the Hall of Famer, the kickers this week, I don't know what's gotten into them, but they're just blowing it. And then the reporters are asking Jamar Chase, because I guess they wanted him to do what Debo did the other day and talk to him. And he said, I didn't say nothing to him because we know his job. He know what he's supposed to do, make the kicks. They paid him a lot of money. He ain't making the kicks. So y'all better go talk to the head coach, because I'm out here playing well and the rest of y'all not. So they scored points, 356 yards for Joe Burrow. They were hitting it and getting it in that fourth quarter. That third and fourth quarter when they got the lead back. But I really don't know where you go from here if you're Cincinnati. Because
you got to see the frustration with Joe Burrow. You can tell he's not happy. He said as much after the game. Reporter asked him, is this the most frustrating season you've ever had? And he says, yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. And Richard, you talked about it. The defense has not stood up. The kicker, we talked about it with him and Jake Moody. And like you said, Justin Tucker, these kickers are really struggling and costing teams games right now. That comes down to defense. The Cincinnati Bengals needed big stops down the stretch, and they just could not get it. It was the Chargers that elevated their game. NFL's Next Gen Stats says the Cincinnati Bengals have a 9% chance of making the playoffs. Richard, how likely do you think it is that they are done?
highly likely. I mean, if you're saying 9%, that's on the high side. I would have thought it was 0.9 or something because I just don't see it. I don't see the Steelers are getting better. You already lost to the Ravens twice. I don't even know if you beat the Browns, So within your division, you got to bye week so you guys can think about it and lick your wounds and recalibrate. But then you play Pittsburgh, and maybe you find a way to get that game. Maybe you find and you're 5-7. But can you get them twice? Like, can you keep getting them? Can you get the Cleveland Browns? Can you win the rest of your games? And I just don't know what this defense. They haven't shown that. They've shown flashes of decent play, but you just can't find a lot of talent on the D line outside of the guys that you're expecting. They got a couple guys doing a lot of work and nobody else. Trey Hendrickson, I think he has like 11 or 12 sacks. Then the next highest on their team is like 3. So you can't have that kind of gap within your team. You need more. He needs help. And in the secondary, you can't cover forever. So no matter which calls you call, you can't play man for 4 or 5 seconds. You can't play zone for 4 or 5 seconds. You're going to get picked apart. And that's what's happening. You can't expect this without guys getting to the quarterback. That's why pass rushers are such a premium, because if you have time to pick your defense apart, they're going to, and they have.
Well, when it comes down to the Chargers, Richard, this team, again, they're 7-4 right now. They got their first real big test of the year against the Baltimore Ravens. If there's one knock when it comes to this 7-4 Chargers, it's you look at the quality of their wins. I mean, they've beaten the Raiders, they've beaten the Panthers, the Broncos, the Saints, the Browns, the Titans, and now the Bengals. I mean, there's not really any game that's a marquee win on that record right now. Who do you like in the upcoming game against Baltimore? Do you think the Chargers have a shot to take it to them?
Yeah. I mean, I have to believe that now after watching their game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers, 6 field goals, beat them. 6 field goals. The Baltimore Ravens stood up in the red zone, held them 0 for 4 in the red zone, but they couldn't get anything on offense. They got the 1 touchdown, and then they missed 2 field goals, and they stopped. They went away from the run game, and I got Baltimore Ravens fans say, "Oh, there's so much more to the game, so much more." Well, like then tell me what it is. Tell me what else, Mr. Expert. They lost 4 games this year, and it just happens that Derrick Henry's not getting a lot of touches. And you're like, well, Lamar was inaccurate. He overthrew some passes. That's going to happen sometimes. He's still the MVP of the league. He's going to miss some passes. That's why you run the ball. Kickers miss some kicks. Guess what? Run the ball. Like, you got a problem with my logic? Then check yourself before you wreck yourself, because it's bad for your health. And so I think the Chargers can win this game because defense, Metro. Defense. And if they play better defense, now Lamar Jackson is a cheat code, but certain teams have just had him. He's great against NFC teams, but AFC teams can have his number. I mean, the Raiders beat him this year. So I think if they're fully healthy, the Chargers are going to give them all a run for their money. Their defense has been near the bottom of the pack in a lot of categories, especially pass defense. So if the Chargers get going and they get to run in power at a high level and a high tilt, I think the Chargers can win this game.
The Giants just demoted Daniel Jones to QB3, and in his place, they've elevated Tommy DeVito into the starting role. This kind of spells that Daniel Jones' Giants career is over. Ever since signing his 4-year, $160 million deal, he's played in 16 games with a 3-13 record. 10 touchdowns to 13 interceptions. Richard, I know you haven't spoken highly of Daniel Jones. Are you at all surprised to see this?
I was surprised he got paid. So, I mean, I guess you can color me surprised by anything that happened after that. I mean, you bench him. You realize that wasn't that right answer. I mean, you could have asked 3 6-year-olds that never seen football a day in their life to watch Daniel Jones, and they'd have been like, I don't know, but he's not very good at this. He just doesn't do this good. And I mean, Mitchell, he must have walked into the Giants facility with a ski mask and some more stuff, because he walked out with loot, and I don't know how he got it. I don't know how they made the decision, or who he blackmailed to get this contract, because Why? What did the tape say? What part of the tape said give Daniel Jones $160 million? Like, what? It never said that. Nothing about that tape. The tape said maybe franchise him and see if he'll take less.
You know what that was, Richard? That was the beginning of the end of the NFL QB market, because everyone said, hey, that guy got that. Give me this. And how do you explain that otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, and then you lose Saquon. So imagine, I don't see how the GM survives. I really don't. Did they already fire him?
No, I think this is his first year. He got brought over from the Bills, so he's trying to make this thing right. And giving up Saquon is the biggest head scratcher of the day. However, they do have a good guy in Tyrone Tracy, but still, you let someone like Saquon walk out. This Daniel Jones scenario is not on him. So kudos to him for realizing the problem. And to his defense, again, they did make an effort to trade up in the draft and go get Drake May at 3. So they've had every intention, it seems, from their actions to move on from Daniel Jones, and finally looks like they're doing just that.
Well, guess what? You won't have to trade up anything this year because you started Daniel Jones for all these years. So he's going to be the gift that keeps on giving. Maybe y'all paid him $40 million to get him to his replacement, and that's what he's going to do. He's gonna run himself right into his replacement. You're going to be drafted in the top 3 of the National Football League's draft, and Prime. You're going to have to make a few phone calls if you don't want Shedeur Sanders in New York City in a big market, because honestly, that's probably where he's headed with the way things are shaking out right now. And you're saying the Thanksgiving game between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants is Tommy DeVito versus Cooper Rush?
Oh my God. I can't wait to just tune in right after, my turkey coma that I'm sure going to be in, and trying to keep one eye open for that game, Rich. Holy cow.
Mitchell, they better show other things other than the game to get people to watch this. Is this going to be a Nickelodeon game?
Too late to flex them out of that game, Rich? Or can we just, have an executive decision here to
Mitchell, they would flex them into Neverwary. They would not. Nobody. They gonna flex them and just give both teams an L and be done with it. I mean, God, this is gonna be tough sledding for the National Football League this Thanksgiving. I mean, at least sometimes you got Dallas. You got star power. You'd be like Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, the guys. But when you said Tommy DeVito versus Cooper Rush, it's gonna look like a preseason classic. Hall of Fame game, and I for one am going to be on the plane, and I'm thankful that I'll be on the plane for that game, Mitchell. All right, will I be? I know I'll be in Kansas City eating barbecue or something probably, but
there you go.
I don't think I'm going to tune into that one, Mitchell. I'll check the box score of that one. Thank you very much. There is only one place I go for tickets: Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. When I want to go to a basketball game, football game, or concert, I just click on the event I want to attend, and Game Time gives me a seat preview and offers me a super deal, so I get the best bang for my buck. Game Time also has the lowest price guarantee, or they'll credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code SHERMAN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the code SHERMAN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
Well, let's take it to San Francisco, Richard. Big loss, obviously, against a division rival in the Seahawks, and the 49ers come away with some key injuries to Brock Purdy and Nick Bosa. It's looking like Purdy's dealing with soreness in his throwing shoulder, and Bosa is potentially a game-time decision against the Packers. Richard, next-gen stats puts the 49ers odds of making the playoffs at 30% right now. with these injuries and the fate of last Sunday and this team going to 5-5, how high is your panic meter with this team right now?
Mitchell, my panic meter has been high since the Arizona Cardinals lost. So it can't go any higher. It's been high. I've been panicked. I've been concerned. I've lost sleep. I think my hair was falling out at times. Like, stress, because I don't know the answers. Usually I watch the tape and it's clear and you're like, hey, pass rushing, or hey, push the ball down the field, or turnovers, or red zone. And right now you're watching these games and you're like, it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. It's like a Thanksgiving plate. Like, you got a little bit of everything. It's a taste of everything, a helping of all these mistakes that are leading to a plate full of disappointment. And that's the part that, as a fan of the organization and program, I just watch and I'm like, man, this is such a talented team. And I know how it feels to have the fatigue of losing a Super Bowl. Like, it sucks. And no matter how much you try to tell yourself and you're mentally strong and you're like, there's no fatigue, it gets you. And to lose one, some of the guys have lost two. They've lost NFC championships. Like, that weighs on you if you care enough. And it weighs on your emotion, and the emotions weigh on your spirit, Mitchell, and it just sits on you. And so I thought last year had to be the year. I thought it had to be the year. When they got there, they had the Kansas City Chiefs where they wanted them. I thought it had to be the year. And as this year has progressed, you've seen the holdouts, and then the holdouts end, and then you see the injuries, and the injuries just keep mounting. I mean, Brandon Ayuk has the season-ending injury, Javon Hargrave season-ending injury, and it's football, and you have these things happen when you just don't have the luck. The luck isn't with you in that season, so you don't have the injury luck. And then the ball's not necessarily bouncing your way. You're not getting the calls that you used to get, or the bounces, or the turnovers, and unfortunately they're giving up points late in ball games on defense. When Nick goes out, the pass rush goes away. And we just talked to Gino about that. It just was a different game, and they weren't getting home as much. And again, you lose foundational pieces like Eric Armstead. And I know the fans are like, he's always injured, or he's this, that, and the other. But when he's playing, he is a huge factor to what they're doing. He was a huge reason they were having so much success, just like DeForest Buckner when him and Eric were together. And I was there. I had no problem buying those men lunch and dinner, because big dogs eat first. And those big dogs was hunting that year. And it's just all culminating. It's all culminating. You're just not seeing the same ferocity from everybody. Now, you're still seeing the same guys play hard, but when you're missing George Kittle in the game, he's a tone setter for this team. He's a stabilizing force. When he's not in the game, you just wonder where it's going to come from. And it was coming from Jawan Jennings, but it just seems like every time Jawan plays well, they find a way to lose the game. It's like, hey, Jawan's having a great game, guys. Like, we're not gonna get this one. But I say all that to say, this team has went on runs before, and I think it's possible. Brock Purdy, I think he obviously plays in this game, but it's gonna take a Herculean effort from this defense. Something's gonna have to change. They're gonna have to flip the switch and really go into elite mode and start to swarm and start to make impacts on these games. Not just Fred Warner, but everybody. Diamador Lenore, Talanoa Hufanga is gonna have to come back and make an immediate impact. They're going to have to spice it up. They're going to play with a sense of urgency and desperation that I just haven't seen this season, and I hope I see it this week.
Well, Richard, you were a team captain in San Francisco. You've seen and been in numerous big-time games. This season is not over for San Francisco, not yet. They still are more than capable of winning this division. What would you tell the locker room if you were still playing with the team, to try to uplift their spirits out there? Is there anything you would say to try to hype them up?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not hyping them up, but I'd be totally honest with them. We'd lock the door. Hey, coaches, y'all leave. And we'd say, hey, how much y'all want it? Like, if y'all want to go home in January, let's end this meeting now. Let's go home, start to pack up, book our vacations, and call it a year. But if y'all serious about being championship team, and you got to show it. You can't wait. You can't wait for guys to make a play. You can't wait for guys to show up and save you. Every single person, 53 guys, have to think the game is on them. It's on your performance. And not, oh man, I wonder if Christian's going to play well today and we're going to win. Like, no, you have to be the star. You have to take responsibility for this team's win. You can't depend on anybody else. Everybody has to play with that sense of urgency. The rent is god dang due. The rent's due. You got to play like the rents do. And if you're not playing like the rents do, you're getting evicted and we going home. So if you don't care about going home and you don't care about winning championship, fold it in. But I don't think they got those guys. I don't think they got guys that's going to fold it in. So you need to play like the rents do.
Richard, you got me motivated to run through a brick wall. So I believe in the San Francisco 49ers, and I think they have those leaders that have been in those situations before ready to go. And like you said, losing a Super Bowl cannot be easy, but for them to still be in this divisional race. And at the end of the day, they got the Arizona Cardinals the last game of the season. Richard, let's talk a little bit about Josh Allen. He pulled off the impossible, taking down Patrick Mahomes. And he did so by way of his feet late in that game, just before the 2-minute mark, with a time that typically Patrick Mahomes takes over. It was Josh Allen who scampered for a touchdown. Right now, Vegas has him as the leader in the clubhouse with the MVP odds at plus 150, just in front of Lamar, who's plus 200, and my guy Jared Goff at plus 600. Richard, do you agree with this right now that Josh Allen should be the leader amongst NFL odds for MVP?
I think Vegas is obviously reacting to the Baltimore Ravens losing that game and the Buffalo Bills beating an undefeated Kansas City Chiefs team. You got to respect that. But I think at the end of the year, they're going to look at the numbers. Lamar is going to make enough plays down the stretch. We all know how the Baltimore Ravens do in December. And I think they're going to give it to Lamar Jackson for a third time. Unless something, obviously if something crazy happens and Josh Allen goes on some crazy touchdown throwing spree, I don't see it. Because like we just said, Joe Burrow has 27 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. I think Josh Allen has 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Like he wouldn't even be beating Joe Burrow, and a lot of guys wouldn't be beating Joe Burrow if it came down to it right now. But I don't see him beating Lamar Jackson with it again. I'm a stats guy, I'm a numbers guy, and Lamar Jackson is still up there in every single statistical category. He's thrown for 2,800 yards. He's got 25 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions on the season. You look at those numbers, that's an MVP season. So I hear you, Vegas, but they just making their money, Mitchell. They just making their money, babe.
I'm right there with you. I personally think it's Lamar's trophy again this year.
And now for this week's segment of Seeding the Teams, brought to us by our friends at Scott's Lawn Care. Number 1 seed in the NFC, Mitchell's going to love this, the Detroit Lions. Number 2 seed, the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 3 seed in the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals, so dangerous. The number 4 seed coming from the NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons. 5, Minnesota Vikings. 6, Green Bay Packers. And 7, the Washington Commanders. Some really intriguing matchups. An NFC matchup in the wild card game between the Philadelphia Eagles and Washington Commanders, a game we just had on Thursday Night Football. I would love to see it.
I mean, the Lions are in a dogfight in the NFC North right now. A lot of people look at them and say, okay, they're 9-1, they're doing their thing. But the reality is the Vikings are 8-2 and the Packers are 7-3. So this NFC North race is not over. And then you take it to the Eagles. I mean, they've started to separate a little bit from the Commanders. And then you look at the NFC West. That's where it's any one ball game. Richard, who do you think's most likely to fall down this ladder out of the NFC playoff seeding before the end of the year?
Well, I think it's between the Arizona Cardinals and Atlanta Falcons. That NFC South is going to be a dogfight, just like the NFC West is. I think that first place spot is going to fluctuate a lot of times before this season is done, especially in NFC West. I don't think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are out in that NFC South. I think they're going to give the Falcons a dogfight, and the Falcons are coming off a very tough loss to the Denver Broncos. They're kind of reeling right now, trying to look for answers. They've lost some games I think they should have won, but I think the San Francisco 49ers biasly still have a chance to sneak their way in there. Obviously, the Seattle Seahawks just beat the San Francisco 49ers. If they can get on a run and get hot, they could be in that spot. I don't know. Just the Arizona Cardinals, they just been too inconsistent for me. I want to see how they come out of this bye. If they come out of this bye playing as well as they have over the last couple games, then they may stay. But I think that something's going to change. Well, we don't know how it's all going to fall, Mitchell, but I bet you didn't know that fall is the perfect time to feed your lawn. Give your lawn a boost with Scott's Turf Builder Winter Guard. Recover from the summer, prep for winter. Scott's Winter Guard puts your lawn on the road to recovery from damage caused by the summer heat. Feed your lawn Scott's Turf Builder Winter Guard this fall to build strong, deep grass roots for a better lawn next spring. Repairs from summer fun, strengthens for winter, prepares for spring, secures your fall fun for you. Pick up a bag of Scott's Turf Builder Winter Guard today. Feed your lawn. Feed it.
Richard, let's take it to buy or sell. I'm going to give you a couple statements. You're going to tell me whether you will buy or sell them. And let's start with Joe Burrow. I mean, as you mentioned, despite his record, if this team were 7-4 as opposed to 4-7, he'd probably be amongst the top two for the MVP odds. But their reality is they're 4-7. Despite that, do you think Joe Burrow is a top 3 QB in this NFL?
Yeah, you got it. He's playing like it. I give him all the credit in the world. Look, you cannot take that away from him. He's got 27 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He plays at an elite level, even when his offensive line is collapsing. Other guys aren't playing. He's had an incredible season. He doesn't deserve the record that he has, but he does have it. So yes, I'll buy that. I'll buy Joe Burrow playing his butt off. He's top 3 quarterback in the National Football League.
Bo Nix will win the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Buy or sell?
I'm not ready to buy that just because Jaden Daniels started so fast and got so much hype. He's come back to earth over the last 3 games. Bo has gotten hot and cold. He's had some good games, he had some off games, but I think the way Jaden Daniels has helped turn that program around, if they make the playoffs or if they're eligible for the playoffs by the time voting happens, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Jaden Daniels got a Pro Bowl out of it. It's just that kind of turnaround that's happened out there in Washington. So I think he's still the front runner.
Richard, since Jesus was a baby, the Detroit Lions and Dallas Cowboys seem to have been playing on Thanksgiving Day. Buy or sell? It's time for the NFL to give another team an opportunity and move either the Lions or Cowboys off of the Thanksgiving Day showcase.
Well, I mean, some years you'd be like, Detroit, man, like it's rough. And right now everybody's like happy. Like Detroit is balling. So I want to see Detroit. I want to see them on Thanksgiving. Like that's going to be must-see TV. Dallas, on the other hand, it's going to be must-not-see TV. I must not see it. I mean, they might have a couple kids getting detention that day and they force them to watch that game as the punishment. Like, hey, your assignment is to watch the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants play, and you have to tell me what happened in that game. Tell me how Tommy DeVito and Cooper Rush did. That's your assignment to complete, to get your grade up in this class, because that's going to be, I mean, it's going to be cruel and unusual. I mean, I don't know how torture works, but Mitchell, this is going to feel that way to me. But yeah, I think it's tradition. I like traditions. I like them playing on Thanksgiving. Mitchell, it gives me something to look forward to. I like it. I'll sell that.
Okay, respect. I'm with you though, man. That is going to be a horrendous game to watch. Although I probably will be watching it if I'm being honest with you, Rich. Speaking with the Thanksgiving Day theme, this is my personal opinion, but buy or sell, pumpkin pie is just straight trash.
Trash is a strong word. I mean, I'm not picking
Let's
it.
Go with pumpkin pie is overrated.
Important that I would go with. I'd buy that. I mean, there are a lot of pies I'm eating before I eat pumpkin pie. I mean, apple pie, cherry pie. Yeah, I don't know if pumpkin's up there. Sweet potato pie. Yeah, pumpkin's not gonna make it for me. So you're right. I'll buy that.
Okay. And then another thing I agree with here. I tuned in. I looked, this morning after the big win yesterday, And I saw, to my disbelief, the Detroit Lions are Super Bowl favorites at
I gotta stop showing you stuff.
At 3.5 to 1, ahead of the Kansas City Chiefs are 4.5 to 1. Richard, buy or sell? The Lions should be Super Bowl favorites.
It's hard to sell that. It's hard to sell that, Mitchell. They look like a really complete team, and when they beat teams, they beat the snot out of them. They beat the confidence out of them, Mitchell. They beat them into very much submission to the point where you're like, hey, guys are coming up to them and telling them, hey, that's enough. That's enough, guys. We're all friends here, right? Because you're going to make us not friends after this game. I'll buy that, Mitchell. I'll buy it.
Okay.
Begrudgingly.
Hell yeah. Let's go, baby. And let's take it back to San Francisco. We already kind of touched on it a little bit.
Why do you keep torturing me?
Buy or sell the fact that the San Francisco 49ers are experiencing a pretty bad Super Bowl hangover right now? Go ahead, Rich. Think long and hard, my friend.
I'm experiencing a Super Bowl hangover. It hurt my feelings.
I know
I've had enough hurt. Bye, Mitchell. Bye. Bye.
You know what, Richard? That Super Bowl hangover takes me to our friends and partners of the program, No Days Wasted. If you had a late night with your friends or a few beers, or by chance lost a pretty big, shiny trophy because of a championship game you lost, No Days Wasted helps you wake up feeling fresh, no matter how many drinks you had. DHM Detox is significantly designed to tackle alcohol-related toxins, addressing the real cause of next-day grogginess. Only 20% is dehydration. The rest is toxins, and in Richard's case, heartbreak and hard feelings. Simply take 2 capsules after your first few drinks and double up if it's a big night. Plus, your first box is 100% risk-free. Love it or get a refund. Richard, I think it's time, man. I think it's time you finally pop some DHM Detox and help yourself get over that heartbreak from last February, man, because, I mean, you just gave a pretty sound pump-up speech to the San Francisco 49ers, and this podcast has been able to bestow some luck on a lot of people in the past. So I think, you know, with some help of DHM Detox, Rich, your troubles might be turned around, and so might San Francisco's. I
don't know if you can get rid of the toxins that you feel after you lose the Super Bowl, Mitchell. They live in various places. It's like a uncurable disease, you know. Even I've won a Super Bowl, but the losses just hit different. The winner, you don't even want to wear the winning ring all the time because the losses just feel so. I think I hate losing more than I love winning. I don't know. It's a weird deal.
That would not shock me one bit. Feel your best after a night of drinking. It's completely risk-free purchase. Feel great or your money back on your first order. Head over to nodayswasted.com/Richard and use code Richard to get 20% off your order. That's nodayswasted.com/Richard for 20% off and free shipping. Link is in the description. To uplift your spirits even more, to try to get you over that, you get to go to Cleveland this week. And this is, it's time for a TNF preview presented by Prime Video. I wish you were coming up here to Detroit, Richard, but you're going to Cleveland. You're watching the Cleveland Browns take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's set the stage here. Yes, these teams are widely different in terms of their win-loss, but anytime you get to see Jameis Winston take the helm and sling that ball all over the field, anything could happen for Cleveland in this game. Richard, how confident are you that the Steelers just walk in and take an easy win this Thursday?
I'm not confident in anything in the AFC North. It's dog fights and bloodbaths, and I'm hearing that the game, it may be snowing or slush or whatever you call it, and we got to be out there. So you got to pack my jacket because I'm not dealing with this. But yeah, it's supposed to be slush. It's supposed to be rain. It's supposed to be all these crazy conditions in a game like that. That's where an upset can happen, you know. And the way Pittsburgh looked last week, they didn't execute in the red zone, and there's just enough pieces on this Cleveland Browns defense to to really play spoiler in this holiday season, to really go out there and just put a fly in the soup of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Pittsburgh is well coached. Coach Tomlin is honestly it got to be the front runner for Coach of the Year right now. Anything can happen in the AFC North, and that's what I truly believe. This Pittsburgh defense has been playing as good as anybody. They're going to get to the quarterback. They're going to get to Jameis. But if they let Jerry Jeudy get loose, if they let these boys, Elijah Moore, get loose, and they get a play here or there, it could happen. I mean, Chubb doesn't quite look right. He doesn't look like the back that we know him to be. And, it always takes you a second to get back in your rhythm. And this could be the game he finds his groove.
Well, Richard, that takes us to this week's power ranks. And I feel like I'm finally getting my moment, because you're borderline forced to put my Detroit Lions at number one. But I'm going to let you do your thing here, man, because when I saw Kansas City lose yesterday, I don't think there was anyone happier than myself. Richard, take it away.
I don't want it.
You should.
I'm going to start with 5, Mitchell. I'm going to start with 5. We had Baltimore Ravens. We had the Houston Texans visit this 5th spot. I think we're going to give it to the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. And for all they've been able to do, even though they didn't score an offensive touchdown, their defense looked really good. They're running the ball well. Russell Wilson's making enough plays to get this team wins and victories. They're kicking the ball well. Boswell, 6 for 6. If he missed any of those kicks, it might have been a different game, but he didn't. At the 4th spot, this one's tough because there's so many teams that are playing well. You want to put the Minnesota Vikings there because of everything they've been able to do. They're still, 8-2. That NFC North is so I'm going to put them there, Minnesota Vikings. The Washington Commanders have made an appearance, but I can't put them back there, Mitchell. I can't put them back there. They're not doing enough for me right now. The Kansas City Chiefs are still a very elite team, and although the Buffalo Bills beat them, I'm going to put Buffalo at 3. Josh Allen, you're doing great, but I just 3. You got to do more. Sorry, you got to do more. With 2, I go with the Kansas City Chiefs. They're still the champions. They're still Super Bowl champs. They're still 9-1. With the number 1 spot, the Honolulu Blue, Midwest, Detroit Lions. They're playing good football. They're playing great football. And they're friends of the program.
They're kicking ass, and Richard, we are quickly becoming a Detroit Lions hub for football breakdown, man. The Detroit fan base loves the Richard Sherman podcast. So, Richard, you've got to fully embrace this. I'm going to teach you forward down the field, a charging team that will not yield. And when the blue and silver wave, stand and cheer that brave. Richard, I'm going to teach you that fight song for the Detroit Lions before you come here in early December. And something tells me you're going to be waving the One Pride flag on the sidelines before that game is over.
People think I don't like the Detroit Lions on the spot. I love the Detroit Lions. I just don't like to acquiesce to Mitchell's desires on this show. I don't like to give in to his whims, and I've had to give in.
You gave in. Well, Richard, that concludes week 11. Now you can sign us off, my friend.
Well, thank you very much, as always, for joining us this week for another Richard Sherman podcast, Monday night review, recap, whatever you want to call it. It's been an amazing week, an amazing show. We love this game, and we love you and your support, positive or negative. If you love us, if you hate us, we appreciate you for watching this show. Stay tuned. Have a great week. Be productive. Love on your friends and family, and hit that sub button if you know.